In every election, as Canadians, we get to make an important choice about the future of our country. We get to decide what kind of future we want to build together.
Justin Trudeau takes a trip to the Governor-General at Rideau Hall, triggering Canada's 43rd general election. We'll be hearing a lot from the party leaders over the next 40 days and nights. They'll travel thousands of kilometers, shake countless hands, and deliver speech after speech, all building to Election Day on October 21st. Then it will be up to all of us.
It is now clear, more than ever before, that Justin Trudeau thinks that there is one set of laws for him and his powerful friends, and one set of laws for every other hard-working Canadians like you.
Conservative leader Andrew Scheer kicked things off in Quebec, and he didn't waste any time going after Justin Trudeau on the SNC Lavalin file. Then it was on to the GTA for an event that's just getting underway this hour up in Vaughan. That's where Shannon Martin is live for us tonight. And Shannon, what's it like there right now?
Well, Dwight, welcome to day one officially of the election campaign. People are streaming into this event, and if you ask how important is the GTA in this upcoming election, well, this is the perfect example. Conservative leader Andrew Scheer is going to be here tonight. Last time around, this riding went to the Liberals, so clearly the Conservatives see an opportunity here. This election is shaping up to be an epic fight for the 905.
Hi, I'm Leah.
Smiles and handshakes in the street, then it's on to the next. It's day one, and there is plenty of ground to cover.
This riding was elected a Liberal in 2015. The member changed the constituents' minds and is a Conservative, but they're Liberal. They voted for the party and the platform, and I think they're proud of what the party's done, and I think they're ready to be with us to choose forward.
338 ridings are up for grabs across the country. Here's how things looked this morning when Parliament dissolved. Check out the GTA, almost all splashed in Liberal red. Before Justin Trudeau's astounding sweep last time around, the GTA looked like this, much more Conservative blue. Andrew Scheer and his party gunning to get those seats back. CBC's political team is identifying what it calls the swinging 60, ridings coast to coast where the election will be won and lost. Close to home, 16 key battlegrounds, historically swinging from Liberal to Conservative and back again.
With riding redistribution, there's now ridings that are representative of the population in those places. It's highly contested politics. It's hard-knuckle, elbows-up politics. So you're going to see all kinds of different kinds of advertising, all kinds of visible minority outreach and community outreach in different places.
And the issues are as diverse as voters themselves.
Once you graduate, you think about housing and affordability in general and living by yourself, and we can't really afford that as at this age.
I want to hear about the environment. That's always a big issue.
I just want to see more sustainable investment in transit, because in the city of Toronto we only have 4 subway lines. It's kind of pathetic.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about student issues and student loans.
So 905ers can expect to see more events like this, rallies and big speeches and big promises in their areas from all the party leaders, hoping to woo voters over to their side, Dwight. This event was supposed to start at 6, but it's day one, so things are running a little behind, and that's why you still see all these cars streaming in behind me. They've been actually gathering for about 2 hours now, so it's likely to be a big event tonight.
Looks like it is going to be a big one. Lots of people streaming in. Thank you, Shannon.
I'm Mike Crawley. Although this election will be fought across the country, it will be won and lost in the 905. I'll tell you why coming up later in the show.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh's first day on the campaign trail took him to London, Ontario.
We have an exciting opportunity over the next 40 days. We are going to bring a hopeful message to Canadians that we can build the country of our dreams. A country where everyone has a place to call home.
Singh is portraying himself as the only viable option to Justin Trudeau or Andrew Scheer. Hannah Thibodeau is covering the NDP leader's campaign. She joins us tonight from Mississauga. And Hannah, why did Singh choose to start his campaign in London?
Okay, so he started in London. There were all kinds of alternatives out there, but one of them was downtown Toronto. They were talking about that. However, the movie stars outshone the political stars, and there was no room at the inn because of the Toronto International Film Festival. So that's one of the reasons. But of course, we know that Jagmeet Singh also went to university in Western, and there is other, they want to go to Southwestern Ontario as well, but that's one of the reasons.
All right, we hear he isn't doing an event tonight because he is prepping for the election. Is there another reason behind that? Sorry, prepping for the debate, not for the election, for the debate.
Yeah, he's hunkering down tonight and a good chunk of tomorrow, too, to prep for the debate. And the debate is a really important thing for Jagmeet Singh. This is his first time as leader in an election debate to show his strengths, and he really needs to shine. We see in the polls that the numbers are pretty low for Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, so he needs to bring those numbers up. This is one way he's going to have an opportunity to do this. But you have to remember, this is the first debate on Thursday, and this is going to be without Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. However, I am sure he's going to want to wedge himself right between Conservative leader Andrew Scheer and Green Party leader Elizabeth May. So he's going to try to outshine them and have a couple of maybe knockout punches as well.
That was kind of going to be my next question, Hannah. He's trying to portray himself as an alternative to Trudeau and Scheer, but he wasn't mentioning Elizabeth May that much, but the polls show that's his main competition. So what's the strategy there?
I think when any leader goes out on the election campaign on the first day, they want to show that, look, we are viable to be the leader of this country. And that's what he was saying today. He didn't talk about Elizabeth May, even though in the polls, many of the polls, he's in a neck-and-neck race with them for third place. But you head into campaigns, you have to stay positive. And remember back in 2015, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were in third place. They went and jumped to first place. Tom Mulcair, at that time, the NDP leader, was poised to be prime minister. Well, he actually faltered and fell back into third place. So you see that things can change. They need to stay positive on the first day. And I think that's why he's trying to stay positive to show, look, there can be change. But when you're at 14% or so in the polls, that's a long way to go.
Looking forward to speaking to you a lot over the next 40 days. Thank you, Hannah.
You're quite welcome.
The Green Party is hoping to win official party status with this election. That means 12 seats in the House of Commons. Leader Elizabeth May is making the environment the center of her platform, and she's trying to do it with optimism.
This election is about telling the truth to Canadians about how serious the climate emergency really is. And we do that in order not to create fear. We do that in order to give everyone hope.
This is Elizabeth May's fourth federal election, making her the most seasoned leader of any party. And another campaign kicked off here in Toronto.
If you look at the other political parties, they're all the same on a lot of important issues for Canadians, like immigration. 49% of Canadians want to speak about immigration, and they are saying that we need to have fewer immigrants. And we're the only party with a proposal with fewer immigrants.
Former Conservative Cabinet Minister Maxime Bernier is leading a new political party in this election. The People's Party of Canada is calling for changes to immigration policy. Bernier kicked off his campaign in the riding of Etobicoke North, where Renata Ford is running for the People's Party. She is, of course, the widow of late Toronto Mayor Rob Ford. And we are following how the candidates are faring daily through the latest polls. It's only day one, but it's already turning out to be a tight race. We'll speak to CBC's poll analyst later in the show. She's back and happy to be home. Canadian tennis star Bianca Andreescu flew home yesterday, a few days after her historic win at the U.S. Open. And to help her celebrate, she met with a swarm of Canadian media at the Aviva Centre. Our Greg Ross was there.
It didn't take long for Bianca Andreescu to realize that life in Canada will never be the same as it was before she left for the U.S. Open.
I actually went to the Yorkdale yesterday. That was my first stop, and I've been getting more recognized than usual.
It's going to take a little getting used to. In fact, the 19-year-old still hasn't gotten over her American media blitz on Monday, which included a visit to The Tonight Show.
You started the year ranked 152, now you rank 5.
I still can't believe I was on that show. I didn't think he was a real person before I actually met him.
Andrescu used that appearance to send this message to Drake.
Is there anyone you haven't heard from yet?
Drizzy.
Yeah.
Champagne Papi, I'm waiting for you.
Drake, if you're watching.
Turns out he was.
Oh, Drake messaged me, by the way. He's like, here I am, smiley face, congrats. We are all so proud of you. I've been liking every post with you in it, LOL. I thought you'd see. Yeah, that was cool. I don't even know what to reply to that.
But it's not just messages from celebrities that are getting the tennis star's attention.
I've been getting some messages saying that they've never watched tennis before, but now they will. I've gotten some where they said that they actually started playing tennis because of me. So yeah, that's amazing.
Andrescu says she accepts the fact that along with being a champion, she's now a role model.
One of my goals was to be able to be an inspiration to many people, and I think I'm starting to do that, which means a lot to me.
All of this seems like a heavy load for a teenager to shoulder, but Andrescu says she has a good support group around her, led by her parents, Maria and Niku.
My mom always says to me, don't forget who you are and dream big to get big, and I think I've been doing that.
Winning the U.S. Open title was certainly a dream of Andrescu's, but she says the dream is far from over. Andrescu says she has much more to accomplish in the sport of tennis, including winning more Grand Slams. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Andrescu was also asked about whether she'd like a parade in her honor in the city. Here is her response.
What do you guys
Do you want a parade?
Yeah, why not? That would be really cool. I don't know what my schedule is at this point, but I don't know. I have no idea.
We do. Bring on the band for Bianca. Congrats again to the U.S. Open champ. I don't know what to say. I love the kid. I love the way she's repping this city and this country. And I had the chance to see her in person up at the Rogers Cup, where Serena got injured and wasn't able to finish. But that was a great rematch at the U.S. Open, and our girl won.
And she did. Dream big to get big.
Right?
Yeah, I love that. Some great advice. And I also think, you know, somebody asked you if you want a parade in honor of yourself. Who's not going to say, okay? I love it. Here we are. Do you love the heat? I do. 28 degrees right now. That's the current temperature, but of course we have this humidity out there. It's pretty sticky. At one point today it was feeling like about 37, but right now 32. Of course we're seeing the winds change direction as the cold front is going through, and something else to accompany that. You know, that front provides some of this lift, and we've got this very buoyant air because it is just so humid. So you're seeing it just off the screen here. So let's broaden the perspective, and you can see, yes, there's been some active weather into southwestern Ontario, some severe thunderstorm warnings, particularly at times around the Sarnia, through that region. Well, all of this, of course, tracking eastward in our direction. I want to kind of show you, first of all, the lightning strikes, and then show you how it's going to move in terms of the timing. So just thousands of lightning strikes associated with some of these cells. Now, what I will say is that we get into the latter evening hours, some of them will weaken as they're moving towards the GTA somewhat. So watch how this kind of breaks apart a little bit as we go into the later evening hours. This is 9 p.m. Then it kind of comes back together as we get after midnight. So we are going to see some wet conditions through the overnight hours, likely some rumble of thunder in there as well, and lingering into tomorrow morning and then clearing into tomorrow afternoon. So it will improve through the day. Tomorrow 16, the overnight low though, almost 10 degrees cooler than today, 19 the high tomorrow with some breezy conditions too, Dwight.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
Officials in the Bahamas say 2,500 people are on a list of those who are missing and not accounted for in the wake of Dorian's rampage. Some of them may have been moved out of the region or into shelters, and the impact of last week's storm has been devastating.
It was like a river in there. The water was just gushing and just taking out everything. So we had nowhere to run. So we just was staying down in the lower bathroom, just praying to God.
50 people are known to have died, but officials say the final death toll could be staggering, and thousands of people are homeless. Last week's hurricane toppled buildings and left entire communities underwater. The full scope of the damage is still unknown. Many scientists believe the rise in temperature and climate change were contributing factors for Dorian's strength. 18 years ago today, thousands of lives changed forever in Manhattan, Washington, Pennsylvania, and around the world. Nearly 3,000 people were lost after the 9/11 attacks. This year, survivors and families of the victims again gathered to remember heroes and loved ones.
Bernard Mascarenas.
Debbie L. Williams.
Vladimir Tomasevic.
David Michael Barkway.
Stuart Sue Jin Lee.
Christine Egan.
Ralph Gerhardt.
Chantal Vincelli.
Garnet Ace Bailey.
Cynthia Marie Lease Conley.
Joseph Kent Collison.
Toronto-born Joseph Collison worked in the mailroom of a securities firm and died in the collapse of the World Trade Towers in 2001. He was among 26 Canadians killed that day in the attacks. The comments at today's ceremonies are about grief, loss, and anger. September 11 has become a day of volunteerism across the U.S. with people around the country helping at food banks, schools, and parks.
There's an old adage, what you can't measure, you can't change.
Toronto Police looking at collecting statistics based on race. We'll talk to a member of the Police Services Board about why and how they plan to do this coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
You care about your vote. It matters because you care about your family, your community. You care about Canada, where we're headed in the future, how the economy is handled, the health of our country, and the status of all Canadians. This election, we want you to have the information you need to make your best decision. Be sure to download the CBC News app. Vote Compass helps you find out how your views line up with Canada's political parties. And if you're wondering how the federal leaders are doing, Poll Tracker uses public polling data to make projections and probabilities. And subscribe to the CBC Canada Votes newsletter to get weekly election updates in your inbox. And tune in to The National as we will be exploring the issues that matter to you. We're hitting the road, visiting key battleground ridings that will map the path to power. Sunday nights on The National will be focused on the election with a new political panel that takes you inside campaign war rooms. And watch out for our new podcast, Party Lines. BuzzFeed's Elamin Abdelmahmoud and I will go beyond the talking points to make politics make sense.
Ontario's top court has dismissed an appeal by Stanley Tippett to have his 2017 conviction for obstructing justice overturned. Tippett was convicted in 2009 of kidnapping and sexually assaulting a 12-year-old girl, then abandoning her east of the city. He was also declared a dangerous sex offender. While he was awaiting that dangerous offender hearing, Tippett tried to enlist the help of a fellow inmate to provide false evidence on his behalf. He was eventually found guilty of obstructing justice. Tippett was also questioned a number of times in the 1999 disappearance and murder of Sharmini Anandavel. The 15-year-old went missing after telling her family she was on her way to a new job near her Don Mills area home. Her remains were found 4 months later. The SIU is investigating the death of a man in Malton.
Shock. I knew he got to the hospital with serious injuries, but to hear that he's dead, where I just seen him a few weeks ago talking about his daughter and having hope in his eyes, it's a shock.
The police were called to a home in the Gorway and Rexdale area around 9 last night. Once on scene, they had what's being called an interaction with a 34-year-old man. Officers used a stun gun on him. He collapsed and was rushed to hospital where he was pronounced dead. The man's identity has not been released. Toronto Police could soon start collecting race-based data. It's a policy that has long been pointed to as a way to combat racism. But how will it be implemented and how will it affect change? For those answers, I spoke to Upala Chandrasekhara, one of the members of the Police Services Board who helped to draft the policy.
There's an old adage, what you can't measure, you can't change, right? And the reason that we are doing this at this point is, of course, all those communities calling for this, the legislation that requires it, and what will be possible from this data is actually for the board to set benchmarks and indicators based on the data. So, if there are disparities in certain communities or in certain types of interactions that the police are having, then it's an opportunity to take a closer look at that and do some analysis. And for the first time ever, this data will be available publicly. So it will be shared through the public safety data portal of the Toronto Police Service. So, we as civilians can take a look at this data ourselves.
In what scenarios do you think, what kind of contact would an officer then record a person's race? Would it be a traffic stop? Would it be something specific, kind of parameters set around when it would happen or how it would happen?
Yeah, so at full implementation, it would cover all interactions that police services are having with the public. But we envision a phased-in implementation where we begin with the use of force. And our anti-racism advisory panel actually had a lot of deliberation about where we would start. And we didn't want to start with a particular geography in the city because then there's a danger that you might stigmatize at one particular community. Rather, we wanted to start with a function that all police officers have to do. And so in terms of use of force, there are two main reasons why we agreed to start there. Firstly is provincial alignment. So anytime a police officer engages in the use of force, there is a mandatory report that has to be completed. And secondly, we understand that in Toronto there are about 1,500 use of force incidents every year, which gives us the opportunity, it's a manageable kind of sample size data-wise.
How would they decide the race of a person? Would the officer ask the person? Would the officer just base it on their own observations?
So this was a big debate, I would say, at our anti-racism advisory panel, and also an ongoing debate in the community and in academia as well.
A lot of people with mixed heritage.
Exactly. We were recommending that in the first phase of implementation that it is perception data. So the police officer will record their perception of the individual's race. But we're also recommending that there be a pilot where we test out asking the question. And that it has to be done very sensitively, very discreetly, and officers have to be trained to ask that question discreetly.
We'll finish with this. What outcome are we hoping for? What do we hope will change once we collect this data?
Yeah, so I think it's a large question even when you think about in the context of the Anti-Racism Act. Right, the whole purpose of that act and all this work is to eliminate racial discrimination.
Yes.
Right, and that legislation brings us one step closer. And in terms of this policy, it also brings us one step closer to that vision, because we're all working towards that one vision of eliminating racial discrimination.
Appreciate your time.
Great,
thank you very much.
If they're not fixing it in a timely manner, I almost look at it as a human rights issue. It's like if your legs weren't working and someone just kind of said, well, sorry, fix it yourself.
This Toronto man says he's stranded waiting for repairs to his wheelchair. He says he called the province's repair hotline 3 weeks ago, but can't get results. Coming up, what's behind the delay? Stay with us. We'll be right back. A Toronto man says he is stranded and as he waits for repairs to items he needs daily, including his wheelchair. It's been about 3 weeks since he's tried to get them fixed, but as Lisa Shing reports, he is navigating a complicated system.
Dad, do you want to grab the remote for me?
Sure.
Awesome.
The broken one.
Joshua Dvorkin hasn't been able to do much by himself lately. His bed has stopped responding to the remote control, so he can't get up without help.
I tried using the lift the other day, and I fell over.
His commode is cracked, which has caused wounds, and his electric wheelchair has several issues. The padding for his calf is broken, the controller isn't working properly, and there are zip ties holding the right side together.
This wheelchair is my legs, right? So it's how I get around. I can't do anything without it.
For almost 3 weeks, Dvorkin has been calling the province's repair hotline. In the past, it's taken a couple of days for workers to show up. So far, he's only been able to get the calf pad replaced.
You seem frustrated.
Absolutely, completely frustrated. Literally, I can't go anywhere.
Peter Athanasolopoulos with Spinal Cord Injury Ontario says the company that has the repair contract with the province is now requesting payment up front before they assess or repair devices.
We're putting people's health at risk, and we're putting people's families at risk, and employment at risk.
And it's a wider problem. For the last 6 months, he's been getting calls every week from across Ontario about the issue.
Imagine what that does to your dignity, your social structures, your employment.
The system is really broken. I think it needs to be looked at closely.
The province says it understands the delay in repairs can be frustrating. For Dvorkin, advocating for such a basic need is exhausting. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Canadians will head to the polls in October to vote, and teachers will be voting as well. Ontario's Elementary Teachers Federation announcing they will vote if they will strike. EDFO says it will hold mass meetings with all 83,000 members. They'll discuss central bargaining issues and conduct a strike vote. Those meetings will happen during the next 2 months. If a strike were to happen, it would be weeks after voting. The union says priority issues include more support for students with special needs, class sizes and class structure, and transparent hiring practices.
We've all got a choice to make. Keep moving forward and build on the progress we've made, or go back to the politics of the Harper years.
It's the first day, and there are already some strong words. The federal election campaign is officially on the way. All leaders are out making their promises to Canadians, and so far, it's a tight race. The CBC's latest poll tracker shows the Liberals and the Conservatives in a dead heat with just under 34% support. Here's Conservative leader Andrew Scheer as he kicked off his campaign today in Quebec.
The question this election is very clear. Who can you trust to help you and your family to get ahead? And the answer is certainly not Justin Trudeau, who will only raise your taxes and take more money from your pockets.
Eric Grenier has been following the numbers closely. He is, of course, CBC's poll analyst. Hello, Eric.
Hello.
How do the numbers break down for the two frontrunners right now across the country?
Yeah, you had mentioned how we're looking at a deadlock between the two parties at about 34% apiece, but that's really a change from where things were at the beginning of the summer when the Conservatives were leading by about 5 or 6 points over the Liberals nationwide. So over the summer, the Liberals have been successful in getting that support back and working themselves back into a tie with the Conservatives. But when you break it down regionally, it really tells a different story because the Liberals have an advantage in Ontario, they lead in Quebec, they lead in Atlantic Canada. The Conservatives do have big leads in Alberta and the Prairies. The problem for the Conservatives is that they already hold most of the seats there, so it's not going to give them many new gains. So the Liberals, despite this national tie, probably are in a better position than the Conservatives, at least on day one.
You show they're trying to widen the gap there. So is that what you're saying? That's how it all translates into seat counts if the election were held today?
Yeah, it would probably give the Liberals the advantage, somewhere around 165 seats, so just short of majority government. The Conservatives maybe around 140 right now. Still pretty close, and it wouldn't take much to flip that. But it shows how the Liberals have that advantage, but it still is a very, very tight race on this the first day of this election campaign.
All right, how are things looking for the third place? And we'll make that plural now, parties, the NDP and the Green Party. Where are they looking to boost their support?
Well, the New Democrats, things are not going very well for them. They're at about 13% nationwide right now. That's down quite a bit from the last election. They know they're going to struggle in Quebec, that they might lose most or all of their seats in the province. So they're just looking to hold what they can. Places in southwestern Ontario and British Columbia, they want to make sure that their incumbents are re-elected. That's what it comes down to for the NDP at this stage, at least with these kinds of numbers. But what's complicating things for them is the Green Party. They're at about 11% nationwide. They're ahead of them in some parts of the country. British Columbia is really the target for the Greens. They think that they can make some gains there, particularly on Vancouver Island. But if they do, it'll come at the expense of the NDP. So if the night on the election goes well for the Greens, it's probably bad news for Jagmeet Singh.
All right, let's get to the issues now. What do polls tell us about the areas of greatest concern to voters in 2019?
Well, I think there's two. The one that is often really a perennial issue is cost of living, affordability. The question of, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? As you saw with that clip from Andrew Scheer, he's making the case that you're not, that Justin Trudeau has made life more expensive, and if you replace him with a Conservative government, that'll solve that problem. The Liberals are going to have to counter that argument. But what's also an important issue in this campaign is the environment. Concern over climate change is very high in recent polling, far higher than you've seen in previous election campaigns, even ahead of some issues like the economy and taxes that have usually been really important. There's lots of parties fighting for that vote. The New Democrats, the Greens, in Quebec, the Bloc Québécois, and the Liberals. So the Liberals have to balance those voters who care a lot about the economy, care a lot about their own personal finances, and those that also care a lot about doing something about climate change and the environment.
Now, we know you're all over the numbers and the issues, but for the viewers who really want to dig into the issues and the numbers of this current campaign, they can check out CBC's poll tracker. It's being released next week. So what can they expect from it, though, Eric?
Well, the poll tracker, the idea behind it is that there's so many polls that come out during a campaign, sometimes multiple ones per day. We saw that in the Ontario campaign, just how many polls there were, that it can be confusing. You need something to boil it down. We average out the polls, give you the consensus view of where the polls stand, so that way you can follow one consistent trend line as the campaign unfolds. See the seat projections, because of course it's the amount of seats that decides who forms the government, not the amount of votes. Hopefully it'll be a useful tool for Canadians, because parties are looking at these kinds of numbers, and it explains why they go to certain parts of the country, why they're going after certain parties, why their promises are what they are. So levels the playing field. Canadians can look at those numbers too.
Enjoyed working with you on the provincial campaign. Eric, looking forward to talking to you throughout the federal. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
To take a closer look at the polls, go to our website, cbcnews.ca/poll tracker, and this is new. It also is now available on your smart speaker. Just say, ask CBC for the latest polls to your Google Home or Amazon Echo device to find out how the parties are doing. You are looking at PC leader Andrew Scheer's campaign event in Woodbridge tonight. The 905 is a crucial battleground for the federal parties, and it's not just because there are so many seats up for grabs. Let's bring in Mike Crawley to explain why. And Mike, there are about 30 ridings in the 905.
And Dwight, that is a lot of seats. But what's most important is these are seats that change hands. And that's why there's a strong argument that this election will be won and lost in the 905. This has certainly been the case in the last 3 elections. Take a look at how the seats in the 905 have swung back and forth. Let's start with the last election, 2015, a Liberal majority nationally, and that was helped in large part by that swath of red that you see across the 905. But these seats don't always vote Liberal. Here's 2011, a Conservative victory. This was the election when Stephen Harper made his breakthrough into the 905. He won all but 1 seat there, and that was absolutely essential to the Conservative majority. Well, that was the majority the Conservatives couldn't quite get in 2008. They won this election, but only with a minority, and the 905 was a big reason why. Harper's party did not win enough seats in the 905 to go over the top. So, when you tune in on election night, keep a close eye on the 905. If it swings largely to one party, pretty likely that party's going to get a majority. If the 905 results are a mixed bag, it's hard to see how any one party gets a majority, Dwight.
And the question now is, what will this all mean for the parties as they pitch themselves to these voters?
Yeah, so you can expect the messaging is going to be speaking to the kinds of concerns that are top of mind for folks in the 905. So we're hearing this includes things like affordability, cost of living issues, things like housing, transportation, the cost of daycare as well. But I also think I should mention what we're calling the Ford factor. Look, just last year, almost every riding in the 905 went to Doug Ford's PCs, but that doesn't necessarily mean they'll go Conservative federally. So you're going to hear the other parties frequently trying to draw a link in voters' minds between Doug Ford and Andrew Scheer, who you see there, because they believe a significant number of people in the 905 and people across this province are dissatisfied with Ford.
We've got 40 days and 40 nights of this. Thank you, Mike. So what matters to you this election? We want to know here at CBC Toronto. What issues do you want us to dig into, or do you have questions about candidates or parties? You can connect with us by email, phone, or on social media. Email us, mygtaelection@cbc.ca, or connect with CBC Toronto on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. We'll do our best to tackle all the issues that matter to you and the GTA over the next 40 days. And what mattered today, Colette, was that I got to wear shorts to work. And don't pan down with that camera. I am wearing long pants now. I changed.
I did see you in the newsroom with those shorts on. You look very comfortable.
Nice one today.
Yeah, it's hard to be comfortable when we have heat like this and that humidity, right? Yeah, into the mid-30s in terms of how it felt with that Humidex. But this time of year, the average high is just in the low 20s. That's where we should be, and around 10.5 degrees for an overnight low. Well, today's high unofficially, round that up to 29 degrees, and our low just under 20 degrees. Well, tomorrow it's a departure in the other direction, so going below seasonal in terms of the temperatures. Right now we're still sitting at 28, Oshawa 25, a little cooler, Barrie at 21 degrees, but look at the Humidex values, and it's this humidity, so the air very buoyant, lots of moisture here available for some of the storms we've been seeing, so that's why there have been severe thunderstorm watches and some warnings at times back towards southwestern Ontario. And in fact, if I take the radar and now add on the lightning strikes, look at that show. Yeah, all kinds of strikes associated with these storms. Now, they're going to wind down a little bit as they continue tracking eastward towards the GTA, but reaching earlier towards the Niagara Peninsula, you may still have some embedded thunderstorms coming through there, and that potential as well through the city. It kind of breaks up a bit, and then in the overnight hours, we'll see another wave kind of coming through, and that lingers into tomorrow morning. So still some showery activity quite possible for the morning commute, a little bit of fog and mist in there, and then the clouds kind of hang in until the afternoon, and we see those starting to break up, and we get into some sunshine. So then we kind of take a little sunshine, anyway, a break near the end of the day tomorrow and overnight into Friday. Well, Friday, the bulk of the day is looking like a nice day, but there's going to be the next system coming through, and as that approaches towards the evening hours, that's when we'll see more rain showers coming through, and again, there may be some scattered thunderstorms there as well. I want to show you the winds too, so we're not only going from the heat and humidity of today, but a cooler breeze, those winds out of the north to northeast, and at times we're probably tomorrow, especially in the morning hours, could see some of those wind gusts going up there, you know, I'd say up to 50 or just over 50 kilometers an hour, so that's certainly something to be aware of. Overnight tonight, mid-teens for our lows, and a look at tomorrow's high, just 19 degrees and feeling cooler. A look ahead towards the weekend. At this point, looking like a fair weekend, Dwight.
Fair is good. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
Some city councillors are outraged today when it comes to safety and construction sites after a woman was hit and killed by a cement truck yesterday. I'm Angelina King at Yonge and Eglinton. I'll have more on what they're demanding from city councillors and from developers. That's coming up after the break.
A day after a woman was fatally struck by a cement truck near Yonge and Eglinton, city councillors in the area are joining forces asking for safer streets. Angelina King joins us live from there now. And Angelina, they say the roads have become unsafe due to the ongoing construction.
Yeah, exactly, and they're really frustrated about it. A press conference wrapped up just a couple of minutes ago, and during it, these three city councilors were visibly upset, saying that there's just so much nonstop construction in this area. It's becoming unsafe for residents, saying that they've heard from people that are afraid to even walk to the grocery store, to the subway, saying that something needs to be done. Now, this all comes after yesterday's incident when a 54-year-old woman was hit and killed by a cement truck just a few blocks away from me at Yonge and Erskine. She was actually dragged for several meters, and the city councilors say that the construction trucks in this area just aren't following the rules. They pointed to a similar incident back in January, about 5 kilometers northwest from me, when a 41-year-old man was hit and killed by a dump truck. So the three councillors from this area, Mike Cole, Josh Matlow, and Jay Robinson, all say that this has now come to a tipping point.
This is really not a big surprise. We all saw this was coming. We forecasted this. We had multiple public meetings about this very issue, this very tragic outcome.
This is why we want a serious pause whereby we as councillors sit down with the developers, sit down with the mayor's office, sit down with city planning and transportation, and say we want these things done now, immediately, and then we might have hope of managing this monstrosity that is taking place here.
So they have put forward 5 demands from City Council. I'll read them to you. First, they want a safety plan for all major construction sites before the city approves developments. They want certain driver training for all heavy construction truck drivers. They want full-time pedestrian crossing guards at big construction sites and at all construction sites on Yonge Street for a nearly 2-kilometer stretch from Castlefield past Davisville Station, and they want the developers to pay for that. Lastly, they want a construction safety management plan implemented immediately here at the Yonge Eglinton area, and they say that they don't want the city to approve any other new major development projects until those demands are fulfilled. They've started a petition, so right now they're trying to get more public support before taking that to City Council, but they say they have spoken to the mayor about these issues. Dwight?
We'll keep on top of this one. Thank you, Angelina. The U.S. is set to crack down on vaping after hundreds of reported illnesses. What could be banned? Coming up next. The Trump administration is weighing whether flavored e-cigarettes should be banned in the U.S.
Vaping has become a very big business, as I understand it, like a giant business in a very short period of time. But we can't allow people to get sick, and we can't have our youth be so affected. And I'm hearing it, and that's how the First Lady got involved. She's got a son together that is a beautiful young man, and she feels very, very strongly about it. She's seen it. We're both reading it. A lot of people are reading it, but people are dying.
Health officials are investigating 450 cases of vaping-related lung illnesses, including 6 suspected deaths. The Food and Drug Administration is now looking at whether all e-cig flavors, except from tobacco, should be removed from the market.
No child should ever use a vaping or e-cigarette product. It is that simple. These products should not be available in establishments where children can easily get them. It is dangerous for a child to use a nicotine delivery device. They should not be using them, and we are taking steps today to get rid of the attractiveness and availability of these products for kids.
The vaping illnesses have not been linked to a specific device or ingredient. Here in Canada, no acute lung illnesses have been associated with e-cigarette use, but medical officials say they are concerned about the rising number of Canadian youth who are vaping. A popular mantra for politicians in election mode is it's all about the economy, and how the Canadian economy is doing will certainly get attention during this federal campaign. Business reporter Scott Peterson takes a closer look at how it's fared since the last election.
Jobs are the cornerstone for how secure people feel about their finances, about making purchases, and how they might potentially vote in the 2019 election. So jobs being the cornerstone, let's take a look at one of the pillars that people are going to be looking at going into this election. Today, the unemployment rate is at 5.7%. That's flirting with 40-year lows, and that's versus a 6.8% unemployment rate back in 2015. Also of note here is about 66% of working Canadians are actually working, participating in the workforce, versus 61% just 4 years ago. So more people are working, potentially feeling more secure about the economy and their jobs. Second pillar that people might be looking at is the overall economy to support those jobs and the positions. The GDP now is still growing, 3.7% in the second quarter, but economists at the Bank of Canada believe that's going to level out to about 1.3% for the rest of the year, and that's versus a 1% growth back in 2015. And the backdrop for that election was the first couple of quarters of the year in 2015, there was actually a contraction. So there was talk of a recession, which is tough for any government to go into. The price of oil, also a continuing topic and a hot button issue at that, particularly in Alberta. Right now, it's been rising. It's about $57 a barrel. That's down from a little bit from last year, but nowhere near the $48 it was in 2015 when it sank over 30% from the year previous to that. And as a result of that, Alberta lost thousands of jobs. It saw its provincial economy contract by 4%. So that was a tough time for any incumbent prime minister to fight. But what matters this time around for voters is how secure they feel about their own jobs and positions and their financial situation going forward. For example, a spring study by the Angus Reid Institute surveyed Canadians. 55% of them said that now was a bad time for them to make a major purchase, and also half of Canadians at that time were worried about a member of their household losing a job. So these two factors goes into a lot of feeling about how Canadians feel about the economy, about the security of their jobs, and that, of course, could affect the outcome of how Canadians vote. Scott Peterson, CBC News, Toronto.
As we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. The TSX was up by just under 74 points. The Dow Jones was also up by 227, and the Canadian dollar traded for an average of 75 cents US. Stay with us. We'll be right back. feel like we haven't showed you your GTA for a while. We've got this photo from Jonathan G. It's of an art installation at the Bentwick. Actually, you can see the bottom of the Gardner there, the park under the Gardner near Fort York and Spadina. Great shot, Jonathan. Remember, get your photos to us by posting them on Twitter or Instagram with the hashtag CBCYourGTA, and we will air some of them, nice ones like that, on the show. Now, I was saying it was nice today. A little bit of heat is okay. I know it's humid and everything, but we know it's not going to last, so it's like the last of summer, so
I know.
soak it up.
I know. I wish it would last, but yeah, this is really kind of the one day, and then everything changes as we head
back to normal.
Yeah. Into tomorrow, we're going to find some much cooler air pushing in, but in between, we've got showers, some thunderstorms that'll push through the overnight hours. So we head down to a low overnight of 16 degrees. And notice, first of all, the direction of the winds turn to the northeast. And as we're seeing more of the northerly flow, in fact, that's already started, as we get into tomorrow, those winds pick up. So up to 30 kilometers an hour, though some of the gusts 40, even 50 kilometers an hour. So the high is going to be just 19 from about 29 today, so 10 degrees cooler. And almost the feeling of a wind chill, never mind a Humidex. I mean, not really. I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to be a real departure from today. But some wet conditions for tomorrow morning's commute, FYI.
I know you told us the thunderstorm was coming last night, but it still scared us. We almost hit onto the bed. It was a loud one.
There were some good ones in there.
We'll see you back here tomorrow, everybody.